Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of FEHology, the study of Fire Emblem heroes. I'm Memento Mori, and I'll be your FEHologist for today. This is the second part of the Heroic Grail tier list, and I'll be going over the units from B tier up to S tier. And so if you haven't listened to the first episode, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to that first before this one, since that goes over the units from C up to F tier. So I'll start with the B tier, with Halloween Enna. Enna is fine. She's basically Garen, but with a Gen 5 BST instead of a Gen 2 one. If you compare their stats, Enna has 1 more HP, 3 more attack, 1 more speed, 4 more defense, and 4 more res for a grand total of 13 more BST. In terms of her skills, defense res link is already on Sigrun, so it's nothing special, but Enna does make good use of it with her swap skill. War Dragons is only on Idun and Milgrima, who are both 5-star exclusive units, so that makes Enna slightly unique as well. And Pale Breath, being one of the rare inheritable breaths in this game, is also very good on her. Enna's BST is 176, and she does have a super boon, so you could use trait fruits to put her in the 180 scoring bin for Arena. But the thing is, that super boon happens to be speed, Enna's dump stat. This makes building her for Arena not very viable and not preferable compared to others like Ninja Hana, who actually make good use of their super boon. And if Enna is a better version of Garen, you might question why she is not in the A tier where he used to be. However, Enna suffers from the bane of every dragon in the game, and that being dragon effective weapons. While Ganon's stats are kind of worse, he was able to stay in A tier because he neutralized this weakness with her perf. But Enna sadly cannot do that. And since Garen has been moved down into the C tier, it is fitting that Enna should be placed in B, one above him. Nemesis. One would expect Nemesis's skills and stats to be good enough to reflect his amazing art, but he's just kind of sad. Of course, Nemesis did have the highest BST for any sword infantry at 176 before Duo Erica came along with her 177, of course, and he is basically the same slow defensive tank archetype as Enna, who I talked about just before, just with 3 more attack, 1 less HP, and 2 less res. What makes Nemesis sad though is that he does not have a super boon. Therefore, he is forced to score within the 175 BST bracket, which is not the most optimal for Arena anymore. And as for his skills, let's just not even talk about Chill Attack for Savage Blow, because those are just sad. However, Nemesis's niche comes from his unique weapon, the Dark Creator Sword, which relies heavily on his teammates being healthy. During combat in both phases, he gains 2 attack defense for every ally with over 90% health for a maximum boost of +6, and during his first combat in both phases, he reduces damage by 15% for every ally with over 90% health for a maximum of 45%. These effects might seem good at first glance, but keep in mind that the conditions are very, very harsh. Firstly, Nemesis himself doesn't count in the 90% HP effect, so Dark Creator Sword relies on everyone in his team being healthy to achieve its full effect. Secondly, the 90% threshold is extremely harsh, and basically any damage is going to take you out of it. Thirdly, the damage reduction effect only applies in his first combat in both phases, which once again is usually not very reliable as with these kind of skills, unless you are able to guarantee that Nemesis only fights once every turn. So therefore, with so many conditions restricting its effects, even though Dark Creator Sword is unique, it is not the most reliable weapon around. Therefore, even though Nemesis is an interesting unit with a cool weapon, there are just so many things hindering him from being actually good that he has to stay in the B tier and be sad. Next up is Darros. Darros finally became Sail with his introduction into Fae, along with the Pirate Special banner. Stat-wise, he is very similar to Groom Hinata, with 1 less HP, 1 less attack, 3 less defense, and same res, but he trades those for 5 more speed. What puts Darros 1 tier above Hinata, however, is his inheritable weapon. Darros' Deck Swabber essentially gives him low attack defense 5 by inflicting attack defense 5 and neutralizing enemy bonuses to the 2 stats, so long as he is not adjacent to any ally at all. With the ability to neutralize an enemy's bonuses in 2 stats while also giving them an in-combat debuff, the low skills are already incredibly useful, and being able to have an enhanced version of these skills by fulfilling a relatively simple condition immediately makes the Deck Swabber one of the best inheritable axes in the game. When compared with Groom Hinata, Darros' 5 higher speed makes it so that he is harder to double, and the -5 attack debuff on his weapon can kind of offset his terrible res. So therefore, even though Darros' stat line still pales in comparison to other free-to-play axe infantry units in the summoning pool, the sheer utility that his weapon brings allows him to stay solidly within the B tier. New Year's Keaton is a very interesting unit. As one of only 3 beast units in the Grail pool and the only infantry unit among them, Keaton has 176 BST with a super boon in attack. Therefore, to score optimally in Arena, you will have to give him trait fruits, though I don't think anyone is going to complain about a unit with 45 attack at base without even equipping a weapon. And yeah, it certainly is a very interesting weapon. Keaton's Resolved Fan gives him a flat +3 to defense, gives him +5 defense and -5 to his foe's defense during combat, provided that the foe is above 75% HP. And also deals true damage equal to 70% of the stat difference with a maximum of 7. Of course, it carries the typical beast infantry effects of +2 attack when transformed and the rolled out effect. I'd say that this is one of the more unique weapons in the Grail pool, because we currently do not have any weapon that deals true damage based on a defense check, and the +10 stat swing that Keaton's weapon creates, aside from the true damage, also helps him become tankier and deal more damage. Of course, this weapon combos well with his frankly insane base 43 defense and very good attack stat of 41. His A skill of Sturdy Blow and B skill of Attack Defense Link, while not particularly spectacular, do combo very well and help boost Keaton's highest stats. However, I think that Keaton also faces a couple of glaring problems that place him in the B tier. First of which is the kind of harsh condition to his weapon. 75 HP is not a very difficult threshold to clear, and as long as Keaton's enemy has faced 1 or more combats, chances are that they have below 75% HP, and his weapon won't work that well. Another thing is that Keaton's speed and res are terrible. 24 speed means that Keaton is going to be doubled very easily, and 20 res also means he'll keel over if any mage looks at him the wrong way, basically. The final issue to keep in mind is that Keaton is a beast unit, even though he's supposed to be run in Arena. If you don't already have a team based on beast or dragon units, there will essentially be pressure to keep Keaton away from the rest of your team, which might prove to be quite difficult when you begin to engage the enemy. Therefore, even though Keaton is unique and quite good, those glaring flaws do hold him back from being a truly great Arena core unit. Plegian Chris. Plegian Chris is a unit that I absolutely love because of its art, but isn't that great. To be sure, his offensive spread of 37-37 is nothing to scoff at, and his defensive spread of 31-22 is very capable. I'd say he mainly suffers from the problem of being a male Grail unit, basically. Chris has no super boons that make him stand out, and with the inclusion of Lex in the free-to-play pool, who is also an axe cav but has a true brave effect in both phases, there really isn't anything that makes Chris that unique. However, he does have one redeeming feature, and that is the Plegian Axe. If you listen to the dating game based on the Dark Desert Rituals banner, the other FEHologists go into a lot of depth about these weapons, and they are very good. His A skill of speed defense 2 and B skill of chill attack are basically par for the course of what we expect from a free-to-play unit in 2021, so nothing special there. You're going to replace both of those skills, as I did, if you want to build him up. Now, to corrections in tier. Astram. Even though Astram is another unit that I love, he was my first +10 and I still use him to this day. He moves down to the B tier because his effects just aren't that outstanding in the current metagame. The visible buffs given by his Mercurius are good, but Faith's Refined Dragonstone gives +5 instead of +4 to all stats, and is not limited to only physical units. With the meta moving away from visible buffs, you could probably find better unique weapons on other units. And since Astram only scores 175 BST, and this year we are definitely getting more infantry units that score 180, meaning that Astram as a unit that, while decent, has nothing that outstanding to make him have staying power. Masked Marth has not aged well. Even though she is still one of the easiest units in FEH to have at +10, so long as you have been playing since 2017, her 2017 stat line does not hold up in the current metagame, unless you go the whole way and devote a huge amount of resources towards her. The only thing stopping her from dropping down further in this list, however, is the Sealed Falchion that has an amazing refine that updates her for the meta. But I'd still say she's a fine unit, and if you don't currently have her at +10, probably don't get her to +10. The Black Knight drops down to B because of his age, even though the addition of trait fruits has led to some interesting Black Knight builds that take advantage of his 34 base speed, which is very high for an armored unit. As long as you fight against more than a couple of him in arena or arena assault, you'll soon realize that the Black Knight really isn't the oppressive force that he used to be, Black Luna or no, because 34 base attack is really nowhere near spectacular at this point in the game. And with more and more armor effective weapons coming out nowadays, looking at your Legendary Crom, units that can just destroy the Black Knight are becoming more and more common. As I'm recording this, the refines for DC weapons, including Alondite, have just been announced. So maybe the next time this tier list rolls around, the Black Knight will be way up in the S tier where he used to be. Maybe. Joshua. Joshua's refine is interesting, but not really enough to make him jump up a tier. His weapon carries the same slaying effect and flat +5 res boost as it always did, and the refined effect essentially gives him a spectrum +4 buff and the guard effect on his foe if they initiate combat or have 100 HP at the start of combat. It's nothing spectacular, but the condition is very easy to fulfill, and having guard makes it easier for Joshua to tank hits from an enemy while avoiding a special proc. It's pretty simple, but just not good enough by the standards of today's refines to push him higher in the list, although it does stop him from dropping down into C. Zephiel. Similar to the Black Knight, Zephiel really shows his age at this point. His HP stat is still the second highest in the game, but his other stats are really not so great. At this point, being a 168 BST armor means that Zephiel is just an incredibly lackluster unit that struggles to find a clearly defined role, whether in arena or AR. Berkut. In what is probably one of the greatest jumps in the history of this tier list, Berkut moves from the F tier straight into B. Interestingly, Berkut's refine completely ignores his terrible speed, instead focusing on defense and boosting his capabilities in that area. His Dark Royal Spear grants him attack defense res +5 during combat, so long as he fulfills the incredibly easy condition as if foe initiates combat or foe is at 100 HP. His special effect even grants him low attack defense, a skill which he can stack together with other lulls in the B skill to further debuff his enemies and make him even harder to kill. Berkut's refine allows him to embrace the role of a tanky cavalier who isn't going to double anyone anytime soon, though equipping QR on Berkut will obviously make him even better. Therefore, the Dark Royal Spear improves Berkut's value far beyond the simple stat boost of his own weapon and allows him to basically become one of the best defensive free-to-play cavaliers in the game. Milk Hana. At this point in the game, being a blue dragon with no perf really does not do Hana any favors. Of course, he could be run with Dragon Wall from Seiros, but his base res of 29 can only be taken advantage of with a great deal of support. I think that Milk Hana really exhibits a problem with well-balanced units that Joe talked about in one of his episodes. He takes his 164 BST, which isn't spectacular to begin with, and spreads it out across the stats very evenly. And while this may have made him a good all-rounder back in 2018, in 2021 it just makes Hana extremely lackluster, especially when compared to the very, very good perfs that Noe and Female Corn have. Again, until he gets a perf, Hana will probably be here to stay. Finally, in the B tier, Halloween Rolf. We moved Rolf up a tier and not Louise, since time has basically proven him to just be a better unit than her. His Fury Free Bow is very good and synergistic with Desperation. His defensive spread of 28-23 is way more balanced than Louise's 17-30, and his offensive spread of 30-36 is also better than her 31-34. So yeah, Rolf moves up because he's just straight up a better unit. Now the A tier. So the first unit being newly added to the A tier is Ashnard. As the Mad King of Dayen and a defensive sword flyer, Ashnard is arguably one of the most unique units not only in the Heroic Grail pool, but in Fate in general, because the only sword flyers who come close to or exceed his 35-31 defensive stat line are Ortina and Mirabilis, both mythic units. And he has a 37 base attack, which I think is the second highest out of all sword flyers. Even though Ashnard does pay for this with a terrible 21 speed, combining his defensive stats with 43 HP means that he will not go down easily, and equipping QR will also easily allow him to counter melee threats. Further compounding Ashnard's defensive capabilities is his personal weapon, the Gurgurons, which gives him an additional free defense, neutralizes effective against flying bonuses, and inflicts attack speed -5 on foes within 2 spaces. As if that wasn't enough, Ashnard comes with distant defense free and even attack wave, both very useful skills that improve his defense and offense. With newer, more premium options like attack speed rain or attack defense rain, Ashnard can basically become an even more impenetrable wall. The fact that Ashnard's role of a flying sword tank is so unique in the game means that he is fully deserving of a place in the A tier. Veld, Iago, and Aversa are basically the unholy trinity of annoying red tome units, which makes them all in the A tier. However, one might consider Veld to be the best and most annoying of the three, and that is because there is simply no escaping his tome's effects. While you can have everyone stay apart to avoid Aversa's Knight and move units around to evade Iago's tome, Veld's Petrify will definitely hit someone, and it is quite an annoying effect. From turns 1 to 5, at the start of each turn, Veld inflicts gravity and attack speed -7 on the enemy unit with the lowest HP, attack, speed, defense, and res respectively. This effect means that Veld is definitely meant to be used in AR, and with the inclusion of Seiros allowing you a 7th defensive slot, Veld can just sit in the corner and be annoying because of his tome without ever having to fight. And even though his stats aren't that amazing, Veld does have 38 attack and 36 res, making him a pretty decent mage counter. His other skills are Glacis, Chill Res, and Res Opening, but no one really cares about them anyway. You're probably going to be using Veld for his tome and the annoyance that it causes, and that's all he really needs. Masquerade Eldigan. A surprise, a free-to-play lance flyer of all things in the A tier. Aside from having some of the best artwork of any unit in 2020, Masquerade Eldigan's stats and skills allow him to stand out from the incredibly saturated pool of lance flyers. For one thing, he is the only flying lance dancer in the game, but Eldigan is more than just a gimmick. With Guard Bearing, Deflect Magic, and his native Courtly Candle plus equipped, even with his 18 res, Eldigan can survive a 99 times 2 hit from Cecilia, who has flyer effectiveness and color advantage at the same time. Nonetheless, he does not need such high investment to shine at all. At 5-star +1 with no flowers, Eldigan reaches 54 defense simply by refining his Courtly Candle and equipping Fortress Defense on the A and Seal slot. Adding on the mythic bonuses from Hell and Dark Season, he has a pretty decent chance of evading the isolation effect of Mida's turn wheel, making him a very viable option in AR defense. Eldigan requires very little investment to work well, and even though he has pretty terrible 26 speed and 18 res, as a dancer, Eldigan should try to stay away from combat anyway. If he is forced into combat, however, Eldigan's base 38 attack and the extra 5 he gains from his weapon allows him to be quite a dangerous physical threat. Therefore, for the reasons of his utility in AR, as well as his min-max stat line, Eldigan more than deserves a spot in the A tier. George is a peculiar unit. He is the first colored bow unit that is summonable with Heroic Grails, and he is certainly setting a high standard for future bow reward units. As part of the newest generation of FE units, he comes with 172 BST. With 36 attack and a mixed bulk of 80-74 at base, he both has the firepower to hit hard and the defenses to take a few hits as well. His personal weapon, the Daniel-made bow, acts as an enhanced drive effect, granting allies within 2 spaces +5 attack while inflicting -5 attack on enemies within 2 spaces at the same time. If that wasn't enough, George's bow also includes special acceleration, which means his specials trigger faster. While he may be a very solid unit, he does definitely have some flaws. For starters, George's speed sits at a mediocre 27 at base, which means that he will get doubled by a lot of the prevalent units in the current meta. His matchups against some common arena threats like Julia, Leaf, and Crom himself are a mixed bag, with unfavorable matchups against green units obviously because he has a weapon triangle advantage against them. Overall, George serves as a very strong introduction into the Gen 5 BST units, but he does have disadvantages that keep him from being truly great as a unit. Petrine. Alongside her king Ashnard, Petrine enters the Grail pool as one of the most unique units in the game. Her 168 BST is the highest in the entire game for a Cav alongside Freya, and with a merge, Petrine is easily able to score in the 170 bracket. Her offensive spread of 37-35 is very competent, and her 30-24 defensive spread is fine without leaving really any glaring weaknesses. Though they are good, stats are not the most exciting bit about Petrine. Her Flame Lance is beast effective, the only weapon with that effect in the free-to-play pool, and if Petrine has more than or equal to 50% of HP at the start of combat, she targets foes' res and inflicts a speed res -5 debuff to them during combat. As the majority of units have a higher defense than res, Petrine's perf allows her the opportunity to deal some impressive amounts of damage, and the in-combat debuff doesn't hurt as well. In terms of skills, Petrine is also very unique. Her A slot is attack speed push 3, and her C is threat and attack defense 2. Although these two skills are pretty bad on their own, they are great for fodder. Petrine is the only easily available unit with attack speed push 3, aside from the single copy of Hoshiden Festival Alincia you can get through toilet papers, and she is the only unit in the game with threat and attack defense 2 on its own. Both of these skills can give you great fodder value. Attack speed push 4 is a great offensive skill, and with threat and attack defense 2, you can get both threat and attack defense 3 and special fighter from Valentine's Rudolph, which I would say is absolutely amazing value. So Petrine does not disappoint whether being used as a combatant or for her fodder, and more than earns her place in the A tier. Winter Felix is the first armored colored bow unit we have gotten as reward unit, and his second blue bow after George released in August. Seemingly designed to become a part of the arena core straight out of the gate, he has 180 BST. His offensive stats of 38-37 are great, while his defensive spread of 32-29 is not bad either. Being a blue armored bow means that he has very little competition. only one unit in this case, Heroic Grails, who has 16 less BST than Felix. His inheritable weapon, Reindeer Bow Plus, augments his already good stat spread by granting him attack defense +5 and inflicting guard on his foe during combat, as long as Felix is within 2 spaces of an ally. His high BST and access to class-specific skills like Deadeye and Fighter skills mean that there is no definitively right way to build him, but no real wrong way either. Even though Felix is strong and offers a lot though, he has some weaknesses that can make him slightly less attractive for arena use. Since he is armored, to make sure it keeps up with the rest of your team, you either need a skill like Armored March or Armored Stride, or if you use Flyers in arena, a skill like Guidance. If you plan to use Felix alongside another free or low-cost armor unit who lacks a personal weapon, say for example Winter Hilda or Flame Emperor, you lose out on having a seal slot in one of your characters because they need a 300 SBC skill to score optimally and therefore can't run Armor March there. The only other major disadvantage of using Felix or any armor in arena really is the common presence of armor-effective units like Legendary Chrome and Bridal Micaiah, who are very popular in higher tiers of arena. And so while he may face some obstacles, Felix is still a very strong unit and one that has rightfully earned his space in the A tier. Gangrel. As one of only 2 dagger infantry units in the Grail pool, Gangrel immediately faces stiff competition from Kronya, who has already stood the test of time as quite an incredible unit. However, he is still able to carve out a niche with his 11 dagger, which allows him to gain +4 to all stats and deal true damage equal to 20% of his res, as long as there is a penalty on his foe. The effect is good, and with some degree of investment you can easily take advantage of them, using things like Mirror Impact to stack significant damage. His 38 speed is very good, and only matched in the infantry dagger pool by Julian, who is 5-star exclusive. His 24 defense is not good, but not bad either when compared to other dagger units. As said before, it is inevitable that we compare Gangrel to Kronya. In terms of stats, he is actually very comparable, albeit with 4 more BST. Gangrel has 1 more HP, 1 more attack, 1 less speed, 2 more defense, and 1 more res than Kronya. Simply looking at stats, he is the superior unit. However, the sheer power of Kronya's Athame dagger to wipe out enemy teams as long as they are not at full HP is unparalleled in the game, both for its easy fulfillment conditions and its not requiring that Kronya be hurt beforehand, as compared to skills like Vantage. So the oppressiveness of Kronya provides some very hard competition, and Gangrel understandably loses out as a result. Now for corrections. Arden. Originally, Arden was dropping down into the B tier, but with his refine, he's coming back up. There's already an entire dissertation written on Arden and how good he is, so I need to say no more. Kempf. While many other units show their age over time, Kempf really has proven himself to be stronger and stronger since his debut in FEH. Although he is a sword cavalry and anyone exists, Kempf's venom edge gives him an incredibly unique niche in AR defense. Having better Savage Blow and the flash effect on a single weapon means that Kempf can be a very interesting choice of frontliner, especially since the effects activate even if he dies, so long as he has attacked before. If you have faced Kempf in Pawns of Loki before, I don't need to tell you more about how annoying he can be. So therefore, as one of the most useful units in the Red Grail pool, and especially one of the most unique, Kempf more than deserves a place in Tier A. A for America, of course. Arvis. We initially wanted to move Arvis and Size down into the C tier, but after they're refined, they're in fact going up a tier from B into A. And since the refines are completely identical, I'm going to talk about them both here now. Volflame and War God's Tome got a real upgrade from their base effect. While they initially contained attack res ploy, inflicting debuffs on foes in cardinal directions that have less res than them, with their new refined the debuff is now +5 instead of +4, and the range has broadened to 3 columns or 3 rows centered on units. Essentially think of the debuff range being a cross centered on Arvis or Sias, with each limb of the cross being 3 tiles wide. That is a huge range, and the fact that it doesn't require a res check future-proofs the tool against units with power-crept res stats in the future. That on its own would be enough to make Arvis and Sias great debuffers to provide team support, but of course IS could not stop at that. During combat, the two also gain bonuses to their attack equal to the total penalties on the foe, and if anyone who has been playing in FEH for a while, you will probably recognize this effect on Matthew's Spy Dagger, Ursula's Tome, or Broadleaf Fan. And as Joel will no doubt agree, this effect is amazing for nuking units. Arvis and Sias' refines allow them to fit right into the penalty meta, providing even more debuffs for Broadleaf units, or Matthew, or Gunfer, while also benefiting off penalties created by that team. Therefore, Arvis and Sias' refines are simply incredible, and don't expect them to be gone anytime soon. Legion. Talk about a triumphant comeback. I don't think anyone at all expected Legion's refine to be this good, but it just is that good. The base effect of Sneering Axe is essentially a reverse version of Fallen Ike's Chaos Ragnall. During combat, it inflicts penalty on foe equal to bonuses times 2. Therefore, if the unit Legion is going up against has all stats plus 7 from a Hone attack for Legendary Azura, he takes those debuffs and uses a unit reverse card, giving his foe a net -7 debuff to all stats. Aside from that, Legion gains the Panic Smoke effect, turning buffs on enemies within 2 spaces into debuffs after combat, which can easily be paired with Broadleaf Fan or Matthew's Spy Dagger for huge damage output. But that's not all. If Legion's enemy has over 75% at start of combat, he gains attack speed plus 5 and plus 1 special cooldown charge per attack. This can be used in both phases, boosting his already decent offensive stats and allowing Legion to ramp into specials faster without a stat check in Flashing or Heavy Blade. It is simply hard to argue with Legion's incredible refine, which is why he jumps straight from the C tier into the A tier. Finally, we have come to the S tier, the cream of the crop, and there are 2 units I want to talk about in S tier. Firstly is Brenya. Brenya replaces Valentine's Eddiewood in the S tier, mainly by virtue of her weapon, incredible utility and performance in the game. While Eddiewood's Casablanca Plus used to be good on Donald before his refine for whatever reason, though range was never the best skill anyway. Brunya's Fimbulvetr, however, is absolutely amazing, granting her plus 4 to all stats and neutralizing penalties during combat, so long as she has less than full health or suffers from a penalty, basically means that this is identical to base Idun's Demonic Breath, minus the armor effectiveness. The penalty neutralization is especially useful in Aether raids, where strategies like Broadleaf Fan or just Frasia's Killing Intent are especially common. With her weapon, Brunia is able to easily foil such strategies. Of course, with her you might worry about scoring. After all, Eddiewood's 175 BST, still the highest for blue units in the Grail pool before Felix for whatever reason, is the main reason he was in S tier in the first place. However, keep in mind that Brunya's Fimbulvetr is a perf weapon, while Eddiewood's Casablanca is inheritable, so she does gain a slight edge in this regard. With her perf, Brunya is able to score 750 at max investment, just 2 points lower than Eddiewood's 752. Therefore, even in terms of scoring, she does not suffer heavily, and in the end Brunya situates herself as the best blue unit in the Grail pool. And dethroning the Flame Emperor herself from the S tier is Ninja Hana. Although Hana has only 176 BST to Flame Emperor's 178, Hana scores in the same bracket due to a super boon that you can acquire using trait fruits. Hana has a defense super boon which wouldn't be good enough, but a speed super boon is what really makes her shine. Even if the boon is not taken into account, Hana has a very competent 3640 offensive spread, which stat-wise is better than Dual Arm's 3540 and Rinkus 3439. Her defensive stats are nowhere near shabby as well, and 2830 is balanced enough for Hana to take a hit in the enemy phase. Skill-wise, Hana isn't that special. No one is going to father her for life and death at 5 stars, but having Wrath available at 4 stars means you don't have to sacrifice a poor Astram after promoting him to 5 stars. Her native Ninja Masakari is good for quad attacking, but since it cannot be refined, you'll want to change it to something else for arena purposes. Being the fastest axe infantry in the game along with dual arm, Hana is also able to gain an edge over her competitors like Ross and Echidna. Aside from having 4 more points of BST than both of them, Hana also has 4 speed more than Echidna and 9 more than Ross. Without a doubt, she is the best candidate in the free-to-play pool to run damage reduction skills like Spurn or Close Call. And as to why Hana is able to usurp the Flame Emperor's position, even though Flame Emperor is able to run fighter skills in her B slot, the movement penalty and armor effectiveness that she suffers from does create a distinct weakness. When Hana is able to score the same as Flame Emperor, move better, and fit better into the current speed meta, we can see that she has the best green units in the Grail pool, period. And that is it for this tier list. I've gone over every single change to the tier list from F tier right into the S tier. It'll probably take a couple of months until, I guess, after CYL before I refine this tier list again, so probably expect a 2-parter then as well. In the meantime, I'll be working on a particular project that I'm doing. It's just a one-off episode, but hopefully it should prove to be interesting. And as long as Ilya gives it the all clear, I should be able to record it relatively soon. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can do so at our subreddit of r/FEHology or email the show directly at FEHology@gmail.com. If you'd like to chat, you can do so on Discord, whether by DMing us or joining the R&D server. So I hope you have a wonderful day and schedule another appointment with your FEHologist real soon. Take care.